So hello and welcome to the latest in a WatchPro Originals series. Today I'm joined by NJ from the Bangalore Watch Company. It's a pleasure to be joined by you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Dealing with the last week or so of lockdown here in the UK. What about how are the restrictions across there?
We were in a lockdown for about 45 days back in the March-April timeframe, but the widespread lockdowns have gone. But we're pretty much reduced to working from our home offices for the majority of our time at the moment. So unless and until it's really necessary, we're not in the office.
How are you finding that? I personally find it quite tricky being at home.
It's good and bad. I mean, it's good in a way that we operate mainly as an online business, so it hasn't affected us in a big way. It's bad because we're unable to get the whole team together. You know, there's a lot more productivity goes on when the team's together.
Yeah, of course. So you speak about the team there and the online only business. Can you give us some background about the firm for our the viewers that you're a bit unsure maybe who you are or not heard of you before, or just a little bit about you?
Of course, yeah, sure. We're Bangalore Watch Company. We are based in the South Indian city of Bangalore, India. Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India. There's a lot of tech startups and tech activity in the city. We're perhaps the only modern watchmaker. What's also interesting is that Bangalore's got a long history for watchmaking in the country. It's also what we call ground zero for watchmaking in India. There was a lot of watch companies that were founded and shut down in this city in the 60s and 70s. But we're based here in India. My wife Mercy and I, we run the brand. We lived overseas for several years. We had jobs in the tech consulting industry. But when we lived overseas, we took an interest for fine watches. And of course, we were able to start affording some nice watches, being in the tech world. That's when we started taking an interest in watches. But at the same time, when we looked back home, there was a sheer absence of watch company that we could probably call world class. Any interpretation by an international watch brand for an India edition was unfortunately a very outdated view of India. We felt that there was no watch company that was telling stories from India in a very contemporary modern context. And that was something that we wanted to do. But of course, back in the day, we were not crazy enough to throw our jobs away and move back home to do something crazy like that to start a watch company. But eventually, that's what we did. In 2018, we quit our jobs in Hong Kong. We moved back to India. We invested a significant portion of our life savings and started Bangalore Watch. So the idea is to produce watches with a very modern, contemporary view of India. And sort of try and take it to a global audience.
Is that storytelling aspect of the brand sort of one you really want to keep driving throughout growth and so on?
Absolutely. Storytelling is a big part of the brand and our values. I mean, we all know this. Nobody wears watches today for the mere activity of telling time. Everybody's wearing watches because it means something to us emotionally. And that's the angle that we come at. So our first collection that we launched in 2018 was a story celebrating mid-century watchmakers from India that are now closed down. Many people may have heard of HMT. That was a mid-century watchmaker that doesn't exist anymore. So we paid tribute to the HMT with our first collection. Our follow-up was a pilot watch collection. It's a classic pilot. But it celebrates a story of an iconic fighter plane from the Indian Air Force with a very modern outlook. It's Swiss automatic movement. It's a solid proposition for a pilot watch. And very recently, we just announced a gentleman's sports watch, which celebrates the sports of cricket. Cricket's almost a religion here in India, and we're aware that there's a lot of other cricket-playing nations as well, yours included, Alex. And we wanted to make a sports watch that celebrates cricket through the watch. So that's our most recent collection. So yeah, storytelling is a big part of the brand ethos.
Yeah, I'm a cricket fan myself, so that I did look at that one with some personal interest. why cricket? Was it just because it was big in India? And the collection's called Cover Drive, is it?
Yes, the collection is called Cover Drive, and people that play cricket will be familiar with the fact that the Cover Drive is the most classic of all the cricket shots that a batsman could play. It's a textbook classic gentleman's shot, and we sort of fashioned the Cover Drive to be a gentleman's urban sports watch. You could wear it, and it's pretty much like a go anywhere, do anything sort of a watch. It's got good water resistance. It comes in oil-pulled leather straps. The idea was when we make a gentleman's sports watch, what better way to do it rather than telling a story of cricket, where cricket's almost a religion here for 1 billion people. So that's the idea behind Cover Drive. And
I don't know if you can say too much. Have you got plans in the next few months to launch new products, or how do you plan on doing so?
I mean, look, it's a little overwhelming, and come to think of it, sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we're just a 2-year-old watch company with a small independent. We were already in our dress watch, a pilot watch, an extension of the dress watch for the ladies, and now a sports watch within a span of a little over 2 years now. And just this year with COVID, in spite of COVID rather, we just extended our pilot's watch collection, and we launched Cover Drive just in October. So we've been keeping ourselves rather busy in the last few months. I don't think there's going to be any new product launches in the next, at least until not the end of the year. The focus right now is to take Cover Drive and the Mark 1 pilot collection to as many people as possible. But of course, we got a lot of exciting plans for next year.
Yeah, you mentioned there taking the Cover Drive and the pilot collection to that audience, and we've spoken before about your audience, and when we first spoke of not just the Indian community in India, but around the world. How do you plan on getting that out to that target market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think I want to preface that question with the fact that all the watches that we make today are automatic watches. They're either powered by the Swiss automatics. We use Salita. We got a great partnership with Salita. They've been really flexible. So we use Salita automatics in a majority of our watches, and Miyota in some of the early collections when we launched. So we're typically in the price point of your 500 British pounds to 700 British pounds. That's typically the price point where we play at. A large majority of our audience and watch owners are in India, of course, but we also have a significant number of BWC watch owners overseas, mainly in the UK and the US. Anywhere there's a good majority of Indian expat population, that's a good spot for us to be in.
And is that obviously that's the main target market? Do you see that expanding as you grow as a brand? You say you're only 2 years old. Obviously, it's a great watch. Have you got any plans of how to expand that? Or
look, I think we're an online-only brand at the moment, and given our size and the volumes we do, and the great customer relationships that we like to develop, we don't look at purchases as a transaction. We look at it as a start of a relationship. Many BWC watch owners know either myself or my wife personally. They speak to one of us or somebody in the team before they make the purchase. Many of them have come back for their second and third BWC watches just in the span of 2 years. So that says a lot about the fact that there is a quiet but enthusiastic following for the watches and for the brand. Expansion, obviously, we've shipped our watches to 30 countries. We ship worldwide from India. Anywhere there's a sizable Indian expat population is a classic place of interest for us. But of course, there's also been significant interest, especially in places like Germany, France, from people that are not typically your Indian expats. Perhaps the design is appealing, perhaps the storytelling is appealing. So we've been very fortunate that way as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the price point there. Sort of why that price point, and what do you think that price point offers for? You mentioned people coming back or buying the first, maybe sort of more luxury watch.
I think you have to look at it in two parts. If you look at India, a large majority of our owners are in India at the moment. If you look at India, you have the high end, and India is a very open global market right now. Every single watch player that you can imagine, every single watch brand is now available in India. The retail network is opened up, barring COVID. Any watch brand that you want to buy, you can buy that in India at the moment. But the fact remains that people today, irrespective be it in the UK or in India, they seek out stories and emotionally connecting objects that they can buy and use. And just look at the emergence of British brands just in the last few years, right? I mean, of course, you have Christopher Ward, who's been around for a while. You have Bremont, but you also have, in the recent past, you have Ferrer, you have Fears, Anardane, a bunch of British watches that have popped up, watch brands. In a similar fashion, we'd like to believe that we're one of the first to come out of the Indian subcontinent, and we believe that there's a compelling story in every single watch collection that the owners want to seek out.
So, like that Christopher Ward model of online only to start, and is that how you see the plan for the Bangalore Watch Company heading in that direction?
At least in the immediate future, that is the plan for us, because not only does it give us the the advantage of going direct to consumers. Of course, from a distribution point of view, as a small company, it has a lot of advantages. Shipping lines are now global, so we can ship literally everywhere that FedEx or DHL can ship, so there's no challenges with that. The other advantage also is that it puts us really close to our customers. We can listen to them, we know what they want, we know what they like, we know what they don't like. And I believe, in my personal opinion strictly, is that until you get to a certain size, it's important to stay close to your customers and understand what they like and what they don't like, and that gives you a significant advantage as you grow and scale. I do think that at some point in time, at least from an international distribution point of view, we will go retail, because I'll give you an example. We have a lot of UK owners that buy our watches, and when we ship watches over to the UK, they're always flinching because of the UK VAT. That becomes a challenge point for a lot of the UK customers. So from a simple point of view of taxation and such, I think distribution through retail gives us a lot of advantage. But I do believe that for the immediate future, it's going to be an online only approach for us.
Yeah, and the obviously benefits of retail with taxation and things like that, as you mentioned, but just going back to where you are now, when we spoke before, you mentioned you and your wife are very hands-on with regards to that distribution process. Just how important is that for you and the customers you have, and building those relationships from ground up?
I think it's really important. Consumers today have a lot of choice. They can buy any watch brand they want, and frankly, we're in a very competitive price point. It's not. There's plenty of choice at this price point, and we understand that. And any point of differentiation that we can offer becomes an advantage for us, right? So it's not only the storytelling in the watches, it's also the customer service, the ownership experience. That's a huge differentiation for us, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that my wife Mercy and I were very hands-on with the customer service and the ownership experience of our watch owners. That's very important for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned initially about a few that have already come back to buy that were in the initial pilot collection and now with the cover drive. What sort of feedback have you had from those guys? They must have been pleased with not just the watch, but obviously the customer experience. What sort of general feedback have you received?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, India is still a very traditional market when it comes to watches. You have large retail distribution networks for many of the well-known brands. In this price point in India, we compete squarely with the Tissot and the Dorado and the Longines or the Seiko at that price point. So customers have a lot of choice, but the storytelling is what makes customers keep coming back, as well as the ownership experience, right? I mean, the first dress watches shipped now a little over 2 years ago, probably almost 3 years ago now. And the 3 years of ownership, service issues when they pop up, our team's very active, very hands-on. So those kind of experiences makes people want to come back and continue to buy watches from us, right? And that's a very encouraging thing for us. And not just in India, we have a lot of loyal watch owners from the US and the UK who have purchased every single watch we've launched so far. So that's very encouraging for a small independent brand like us to continue to do what we're doing now.
Yeah, definitely. Once I imagine that expands into a retail setting in the UK, the US, potentially Germany, as you mentioned, with a community there, and France. How do you plan on, or what in mind do you have whenever that is down the line, sort of managing that customer relationship then with those, with those retailers, and how would you go about that?
I think I don't think there's a silver bullet for that, right? I think that's a question that every brand grapples with today, and we see the opposite trend rather of large brands wanting to go after directly to customers and wanting to do away with the distribution channel. So honestly, I don't have an answer for that right now. At the moment, the focus is on making some great watches and perhaps changing the impression of watches that are coming from the subcontinent, right? We understand that there's a little bit of a baggage for watches that come from India. We're trying to change that in a certain degree. We've been quite fortunate being picked up. Our story was picked up over the last 2 years by all the major watch publications, so we've been very fortunate that way. And we're trying to build a reputation to say, okay, now here's a new gen watch company from India that's bringing interesting stories from India that make watches that are at par, if not better than the incumbents in that price point. I think the focus right now is on that, and to continue doing that while maintaining and growing existing customer relationships. When we get to a retail network, of course, there are approaches that we can take. We travel a lot. My wife Mercy and I, we'd like to go out and do events, be it in the UK or the US. We also have a good community in Singapore. Singapore being a good Indian expat hotspot. Done events in Singapore. People may be familiar with Watch Wonderland, who are an independent retailer in Singapore for independent brands. We work with them. We've done a couple of events there in the past. So we'll have to create programs to reach out to the customer base in those markets, and we're very open to doing that as well.
You mentioned events there and so on, and obviously you are an online only brand at the minute, but do you see value in those physical events to launch watches, whether it be trade shows or so on, or do you think doing things online and making a big push on social media and so on is the way to go, and that's COVID's sort of impacted that, or how do you see it?
An online-only watch brand, can not be online only, especially with a story like us. A brand, a story, or a price point like ours cannot be strictly online only. When I mentioned online only, what I meant was our go-to-market was mainly online.
Yeah.
But that being said, we see huge value in being part of trade shows, events, and such. Like I said, we've done a couple of events at Watch Wonderland in Singapore. We were scouting for opportunities to go out stateside and for a couple of events this year, as well in the UK, but this year's turned out to be a bummer, right? We all know that. So hopefully next year we'll start doing that. Last year in India, we host what we call open houses. We do open houses in all the major metros in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, which is our home city. We do open houses every other month where people can come in, try the watches, hear the stories, meet the founders. We see tremendous value in events like that. Complements the online approach.
Yeah, we see that too. It's been a real shame this year that we've not been able to get out there and meet the industry as we would in previous years, and it looks like at the early part of next year when the main big trade shows are set to take place, they're going to look like they're going to go virtual again just for extra safety precautions and so on, which is a real shame. So it's hopefully as time progresses we can get back out there and meet the likes of you guys and so on, because it is tough behind the camera.
Right, we're chomping on the bits to get out there. I mean, we can't wait to get out there and meet people. Because it's, as you said, it's very difficult to do this whole thing behind the camera.
Yeah, I agree. Just to sort of to bring it back sort of to a final point, we have mentioned and touched on growth and plans moving forward. So not specifically on growth, but where do you see progression? And you mentioned products at the back end of next year. So if you look at that and then going into 2022 and so on, sort of for the next 3, 4, 5 years, how do you see the brand progressing? Do you see the team growing or more products? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. I see progress in multiple aspects. So one, the way we operate today is we do design in-house, and like a lot of small independent brands, we outsource the manufacturing with a lot of oversight, right? We have, believe it or not, we have very good manufacturing partners here in India who actually supply to a lot of Swiss brands. So our dials, hands, leather straps, they're all sourced locally here from our partners that we've developed relationships over the last 2+ years now. Of course, our movements come from Salita in Switzerland. Of course, we do some casework in the Far East as well. So we do all the design ourselves, all the engineering in-house. The components are manufactured to our specifications with a lot of oversight. So the goal is also to bring a lot of that closer and more centralized to Bangalore now. That's part of the plan for the latter half of 2021. That will continue. Of course, we're growing the team on the relationship side. We're growing the team on the outreach side to work with folks like yourself to help us to manage that. Now this, in addition to plans to have at least, I'm knocking on my desk right now to, I hope things go as per plan, at least two new collections in 2021 with very different stories that will complement the catalog, because we've got a dress, we have a pilot, and we have a sport. And of course, we have other categories that we are looking to expand to next year.
Yeah, that's interesting with regards to bringing things more localized again. Obviously, a lot of it already is, but bringing the other stuff even closer to home. Hopefully, I take it you see that as the way to market yourselves globally as that sort of true luxury Indian brand around the world.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's interesting that we could throw a marketing spin at anything we do, but at the same time, it gives us a lot of advantages. It gives us a lot of control. It gives us more control, more flexibility than we do today when we bring more and more centralized to Bangalore, right? Today, our dial manufacturing facility is not in Bangalore. It's in the north of India. Manufacturing facility is in Bangalore, so very lucky. So it's just a short 40-minute cab ride for me to go meet with them. Of course, the assembly setup and quality checks, everything happens here in Bangalore. But our case work doesn't happen here, so we have to bring cases from overseas. But yes, bringing manufacturing, assembly, QC closer to home is not just a marketing approach. It's also something that we're looking forward to, because it's going to give us more control, more flexibility in terms of inventory, because we're a small team, right? I mean, that has significant advantages for us.
Yeah, well, I'll touch wood as well that can happen along with the products in 2021, given the last 12 months of impact. But that sort of rounds it up from me. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll stay tuned to any progressions in 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on the show, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, and you. Thank you.